Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile has confirmed his office will work with the Community Safety Department to establish a new funding model to train the disbanded Gauteng crime prevention wardens. MEC Maile acknowledged the news was still fresh and indicated the province would look to the existing police structures to help fight crime in the interim. The move follows Premier Amapanyaza's announcement that the warden program, often called Amapanyaza, would be disbanded for now. The Premier was responding to the Public Protector's ruling, which found that the program was established without a proper legislative basis. Maile will work with his counterpart in the Community Safety Department on the financial support that will go towards the training of crime prevention wardens into the police following their disbandment. Well, for more on that now, we have asked Professor Alex van den Heever, a governance expert, to help us understand this. Now, thank you for joining us here this evening.
Good evening.
The wardens were first introduced, I seem to remember, in 2023. What has taken so long to realise the program was set up without the proper legislative basis in place?
Well, it's not just that it's not a proper legislative basis, it lacks a constitutional basis. The function hasn't been allocated to the province. This is a national function, and it hasn't been delegated to the provinces. And the establishment of these crime wardens, or whatever they are, it completely lacks any legal basis whatsoever. Now, that's confirmed by the Public Protector, but it raises quite an important issue. That is that all the expenditure on these wardens is effectively unlawful from the beginning. Now, that by unlawful, I mean that it is unauthorized and irregular, which is a massive contravention of the Public Finance Management Act. And there is no remedial action that can actually address that. So this is a matter that's going to have to be taken up by SCOPA. It is going to have to be taken up by the provincial legislature. It's going to, and potentially raises the possibility of a criminal action in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, and potentially the accounting officer responsible for this could face jail time at the end of the day, because this appears as if it was willful and it was massively negligent, and those are the issues that result in criminal sanction in terms of the Public Finance Management Act. Plus, the members of the executive can also be held to account, and there is going to have to be a process in place to recover this money, because essentially it is unauthorized. In other words, there is no possible way for them to correct this infraction. So the remedial action recommended by the Public Protector is irrelevant in this regard, because basically that just deals with the legal status of this and the elimination of this problem. But the problem of the existing expenditure has to be addressed, and it's completely unlawful.
Well, what happens now? What processes need to be followed if there's a chance that the crime prevention wardens program could be reintroduced? I mean, they'd have to go through the proper process this time, wouldn't they? Is there a proper process? What is the process exactly?
Well, there is no real process for this because they don't have the delegation. Potentially they can't be what they were, and they're trying to convert them into some sort of traffic police, but they lack any training for that. So they've got to try. What looks like is that they're going to try and find a way of regularizing them. My concern is not the regularizing of these various people they brought in, and it's important to note that the funds that were used for this were diverted away from the Department of Social Development, which were allocated to NGOs for people in distress and community requirements to allocate toward this particular function, which was completely unlawful. So my concern is that, in fact, this is round about 3 billion rands worth of unauthorized expenditure, completely unauthorized. And there's no way to correct it. You can't condone it in terms of the Public Finance Management Act because there was no legal framework for these allocations in the first place. So they are essentially, it's lawlessness. And that cannot be accepted. So essentially, I expect that there's going to have to be a process to hold the various people to account, both within the administration and within the executive. They're going to have to be held to account for this. and I guess we will see processes that now ensue that follow this on. But this was absolutely understandable from day one. There was never a basis for this so-called police force.
I find it quite mind-blowing that it wasn't challenged. I remember it. I remember it in the beginning, and you know, questions were asked, and people were saying, you know, what kind of, you know, are these wardens? Are they allowed to arrest people? What can they do? What can't they do? But at that time, if my memory serves me correctly, nobody was saying, is this legal?
Well, I think that's what they were saying, whether or not this was legal. That's why the matter was put before the public protector, to kind of confirm it. But this is something that takes 3 minutes to know it's not lawful. The issue is that the province itself, the provincial government, should have basically assessed this legally from the start. It's already been a huge issue because there's been a debate, for instance, within the Western Cape about having the function delegated to them for policing powers, and national government has been holding back on doing that. In this particular case, they didn't wait for a delegation. They just went and created some bought uniforms and put people in them. And called that a police force. They're not a police force, and there's no legal basis for them, and they're completely untrained and were both a danger to themselves and to the public. So a lot of the complaints were that this was just an unregulated, unruly bunch that were being established. The problem actually is that you cannot, government is basically a system of laws, and all expenditures are based on laws. This was unlawful. Sorry. So there's no basis, no legal basis, and no legal basis for the financial allocations, and these were not trivial. And essentially people are going to have to be held to account for these funds.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I think one of the most heartbreaking parts about this is that those wardens now are essentially jobless.
And the NGOs who are helping people were shut down. It's important to note that.
Thank you so much for that. I hope to catch up with you in the near future when we have more clarity on what's to happen next.